Hello and welcome to the Half Court Press podcast, the Omaha World-Herald. I'm Wilson Moore, joined as always by Jon Walker. Jon, pretty eventful week. I know we were just saying for both Creighton and Nebraska. Got a lot to get into here, but before we get into that, how are you doing?
I'm good. We just, I think I can speak for the both of us when I say we just trudged through signing day, if that's the
Yep.
best way to describe that, and everything that comes along with that. And then I'm sure everyone in Omaha knows it was a pretty eventful week for a couple of reasons. One being Doug McDermott's jersey going up in the
Yeah.
rafters. So that even added more onto signing day. So yeah, it's been a whirlwind since the last time we hopped on here. Um, but man, I wouldn't have it any other way. How are you,
Oh yeah.
Wilson?
I am doing well. I am in my childhood bedroom in Minnetonka, Minnesota. So that's always a good time. I don't know if people can see the video or not, but it does. If they can, it doesn't quite project the professional um uh serious journalist image I go for. It looks like a
Oh,
17-year
it's
old's
sick.
bedroom, but it's
It's sick.
but yeah, glad to be back home. Are you in Omaha?
Yeah, I'm
Or
in Omaha. I'm actually so what we're recording this
today's
Friday
Friday?
morning. Yeah,
Yeah.
Friday morning. I'll head back home to the kind of Kansas City area tonight, I believe. Spend a few days with the family. I've got one more story to finish that I hope everyone enjoys. It's kind of a year in review at Creighton. So that'll hopefully be fun. Been a pretty good year. And then I'll head home and spend some time with my family, and we'll come back and get into the thick of it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And yeah, just flowing right in through that. Creighton had a pretty eventful week this past week. So I think some highs and some lows for Creighton this week.
Yeah, that's for sure. We had all kind of wondered how they were going to bounce back from the UNLV game, which, fairly, if people had questions after that game, they were right to ask them, I think. Just kind of the way that UNLV won that game. And we talked about that last week, I believe. Maybe. No, we
Did
did that
we?
before those games, huh?
Yeah, yeah, because we
Oh my
we did that on
goodness, that's
Tuesday.
nuts. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, the UNLV loss kind of raised questions in its own right. I think they're kind of far enough removed from that now with like even though that was a loss, that was like the least important of the three games last week. Because they bounced back on Saturday, beat Alabama 85-82 in CHI, and then stay at home for a to open Big East play on Wednesday night. Doug McDermott's jersey goes up in the rafters. Number three is immortalized, and Villanova spoils the celebration, or at least the end of what was going to be a special night. I guess forever will be a special night in Omaha. But the ending is just a tad tarnished now. Nova wins in overtime 68-66. So yeah, it was a doozy for the Jays. We kind of saw them win in a weird, different Ryan Kalkbrenner half-hearted way against Alabama. Um, and then Villanova just kind of took it to them in the second half. More in particular, Eric Dixon. He was a dog.
Yeah. Yeah, I only caught the end of that game because Nebraska played the same night. I saw
Right.
the craziness at the end of regulation with did Baylor Shireman get the shot off?
What did you
Did
think? What did you think?
Okay, I thought no, he did not get the shot off.
I didn't think so either.
Also, it was a weird combination of good luck and bad luck for Creighton, I thought, because no, I
Yeah.
didn't think he got the shot off, but also immediately after that good luck, they got some bad luck because I don't think the ball ever touched out of bounds either. When was it Mason? Was it
No.
Mason Miller who looked like he saved it and got it back to
Uh-huh.
Shireman? So yeah, one of the weirder final like 10 seconds of a game I think we've seen this year.
Yeah. Yeah. We were all kind of wondering, like, what are they possibly looking at? Like, is it the out of bounds call? Is it the shot clock violation? And then I think somebody next to me had it like pulled up on their laptop and was watching the broadcast, and they were like, "Yeah, they're looking at everything." I was like, "What are we doing?" But no, I didn't think he had got it off in time at the end of regulation. Um, but they still had another 5 minutes to win that game, and it looked like, at least early on in overtime, that Trey Alexander was kind of going to be the reason Creighton survived the scare, scored all 8 of the Jays points through the final 5 minutes, and everyone else just kind of went cold. Eric Dixon, big time three over. I mean, Ryan
Yeah,
Kalkbrenner,
to get that
7-1.
over Kalkbrenner
That
was impressive. Like,
that I saw I like got done writing that night, was leaving the arena, and I was scrolling through Twitter, walking to my car, X, I guess, and somebody had screenshotted the broadcast like side angle of that shot, and I mean, I if it was like an inch shorter, Kalk was getting a hand on that. I mean, it was that close. Just nuts. An unbelievable shot from Eric Dixon. Silences that place. And then the Jays still had a chance to send it to a second overtime at the very least. I think Trey Alexander kind of went up to the bucket, lost the ball in the
yeah,
gather. He was pretty frustrated with himself after the game about that one. Baylor Shireman shoots 81% from the free throw line in his career, and he misses the front end of a 1-and-1. I think Ryan Kalkbrenner missed the front end of a 1-and-1. I can't remember if it was him actually, but somebody else missed the front end of a 1-and-1. It was just like, okay, they were not meant to win this game. Like that has become very apparent. Yeah, lucky at the end of regulation, unlucky at the end of overtime. So
yeah,
yeah, that's interesting how that always works out. But yeah, so the good news, I guess, is that all 3 of the league's favorites lost on opening their
yeah.
Big East opener. UConn, nope. Marquette, nope. Creighton, nope. So that's the positive, I guess. The negative,
That's
you got to sit on it for 9 days, and then you don't get a layup because you have to go to Milwaukee and play Marquette. So who knows?
yeah, yeah. I mean that's some Big Ten level weirdness. Anyone can beat anyone with the Big East
Yeah.
starting out like that.
Yeah. I didn't expect it. So I don't even know who's atop the
I
league
mean, I
right
guess it's a
now.
bunch
Like,
of teams like
yeah,
Providence and
Providence.
Nova and who beat UConn. Oh,
Um, Seton Hall. Or
See,
no, it's
yeah,
was it
yeah, it
Seton
was Seton
Hall?
Hall. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So I
yeah,
guess they're all 1-0.
yeah. I'm gonna keep an eye on UConn, obviously, but Klingon, his health is becoming an
Yeah,
apparent problem. I don't know how much you've watched of them this year, but
I seen a little bit. I know he rolled his ankle the other night.
yeah, your best big man cannot continue to hobble up and down the floor. But I'd imagine they don't feel comfortable enough, especially with league play starting.
Yeah,
Just sitting him for 2 weeks,
yeah.
like that'd be brutal. So I've got an eye on the Huskies to see how they handle that. But otherwise, the Big East opened the way, maybe not game for game the way everyone expected it to, but in a manner in which everyone expected it to. It's chaos. So
Oh,
yeah,
yeah. Speaking of chaos, Nebraska played 2 games, I think, in the time since we
yeah.
recorded our last podcast. And start with the first one. Heading down their first or second true road game of the season to Manhattan, Kansas, former Big 12 opponent. Hostile environment that crowd brought it at Bramlage Coliseum, and Nebraska went out and delivered one of their best performances of the year.
Easily.
Especially just bully ball in the second half, especially. And there are plenty of factors to this. Kansas State went ice cold. You can't act like it was all Nebraska's defense. The Wildcats missed some shots, but just the way the Huskers got after it on the glass was really impressive against a team that rebounds very well coming into the game. Jawan Gary was just everywhere on the court. I think he had 11 offensive rebounds. Um, and yeah, Nebraska just took it to him in a way I don't think a lot of people were expecting them to. Just a really good defensive performance, controlled the boards, and just dominated the last 20 minutes of that game.
Yeah, I mean, Casey had 9 points. I'd imagine moving forward, Nebraska will not win very, very, very many games where Keisei Tominaga finishes with 9 points.
Yeah.
So that just kind of speaks to how good their defense was that night. And
Yeah.
then this is kind of what they've been waiting on, at least from the outside looking in. Bryce Williams to be a consistent double figure scorer,
Yep.
night in and night out. And he started to be that. Yeah, I mean, they glass cleaned it.
Yeah.
You know, the Nebraska Windexers, if you like. Juwan Gary, 18 points, Rink Mass, 12. Bryce Williams, in addition to chipping in 10, 18 rebounds, my bad, for Juwan Gary, not points. Rink Mass had 12, and then Bryce Williams had 9. And that was just from those three. They combined for 39. So that's, and then everybody else had a couple too. But that was the big thing for me is I wondered how they would defend. Like, Kansas State seems like they want to get into a lot of wing action almost, with Tyler Perry and with old friend alert, Arthur Kaluma.
Yeah.
When you have those two players, have at it, rightfully so.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's why it was so big for Juwan Gary to have the night he did, and for Bryce Williams to get going, knowing that Tyler Perry was probably going to cancel out one way or another Tominaga. So yeah, that was I did not expect Nebraska to go into the Little Apple and come out with a 16-point win.
Me either.
No,
I wouldn't have been
way.
shocked if they had won, but to win like that was a big surprise. I mean, and they just bullied Kansas State. It was something to see.
Yeah.
And that's
I didn't realize Juwan Gary. Kaluma only finished with 8 points and 5 rebounds. I know Creighton fans probably don't want to hear this, but after struggling the first couple of games, Kaluma really, really, really hit a hot stretch.
Yeah, he's been making 3-pointers.
Yeah, so I didn't realize that that Nebraska only held him to 8 and 5.
Yeah,
I mean, that'll do it.
When Kansas State scores 12 in the second half, there aren't as many points to go around.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then a few days later, Nebraska returns to Lincoln, is down by as many as 14 to North Dakota State before and just looking nothing like the team that beat Kansas State. They were getting, I think, this team, I think there's I haven't done, enough research or anything real scientific to this theory, but they seem to really come and go as their rebounding comes and goes. When they're, I think the game, when they've gotten really beaten on the glass, and that's especially Minnesota and the first half of North Dakota, that's when they've been at their worst. Those have been some of their worst halves of basketball, and when they're just getting beaten on the glass. And we saw what happens when they go the other way, when they dominate by controlling the boards like they did against K-State, but they were not doing that against North Dakota until they figured it out in the second half. I think, it was one of those kind of talent won over. It's tough to pull off an upset because I think the non-favored team has to outplay, the overdog. Is that a word?
The overdog. That's good.
For 40 minutes. And, I think North Dakota outplayed Nebraska for about 25 minutes, and that's not going to be enough. But I mean, Nebraska won. They survived. That's a game you have to be able to win games against opponents like that when you're not at your best, and that's what Nebraska was able to do. I think it's fine. They scheduled a pretty light non-conference schedule, so like for Nebraska, this past 2 months has just been all about they just want to avoid screwing that up. It's just, take care of business against the teams you're supposed to and go from there. And that's what
Yeah.
Nebraska was able to do against North Dakota.
Yeah, I think that's the like big thing for them was figuring out a different way to win, especially again, if 30 scores 9 points, you're not gonna win by 16
Yeah.
most nights. Like that's not gonna happen. So I think it was good for them to see that they can win in a different way.
And
And
that
if
was
I'm
without
not
rink mass
mistaken,
too.
yeah, we had some news before
Yeah.
that game that probably affected the glass in the first half of that game on what Wednesday.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah, that's a big blow for them.
Yeah. I know the hope is he's back by early January. I'm sure Nebraska would like to get him back by January 3rd when Big Ten play
Yeah.
restarts, especially against an Indiana team that's also big and physical. But we'll see. By all indications, it's not a huge deal. Fred said after that game, doctors like found a little piece of cartilage floating around, which I'm not a doctor, but that seems odd. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah. So what
qualified to
happens?
speak on this.
You like, I don't even know, grind your knee so much that a
I
piece like
guess,
chips
yeah.
off essentially.
I get, yeah. I don't know, but it was a relatively small cleanup from the sounds of it.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound expected to affect Mast or Nebraska long term.
Yeah. And that's kind of what it seemed like. It didn't seem like anybody was panicked or anything, or that was kind of even the thought that it'd be season ending.
Yeah, no,
Like, sure, it might be, I don't know, mid-January. Like, oh, maybe we don't feel comfortable yet. But it doesn't sound like anybody thinks that he'll be out
no,
like
and
until
he
February or
no,
anything.
yeah, I think yeah, I don't see him missing more than a couple
No.
games with that. He played through it against K State. He had a brace on his knee. And apparently they found it before the K State game. And
Hmm.
but we're told it wouldn't get worse, but there was some swelling, so they just wanted to kind of nip that in the bud. Was my
Yeah.
understanding of the whole situation.
Yeah. And you got some time off now
Yeah,
before
yeah,
you. So yeah, again, they scheduled pretty lightly in non-con, so they probably figured that Wednesday was going to be a wash. Bless you.
thank you.
And yeah, they probably figured that. Bless you.
All right, now I'm done.
They probably figured that that Wednesday was going to be a wash, and so they
Yeah,
were like, we'll go ahead and have him get surgery. It's even more time for him to recover. Da, 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 da. And then again, thankfully for them, they still found a way to pull that one out before they. That was their last game of 2024, huh?
no, they got one more. They
Yeah.
got South Carolina State on December
Oh,
29th,
yep,
and
yep.
then Big Ten play starts after that.
South Carolina State's going to have an interesting schedule because they play Oklahoma State right around that time too,
Really?
like the 31st or something like
Okay.
that. Yeah, or like
Wonder if they're
yeah, yeah.
making a little
So
triangle around the country.
yeah, I guess so. Yeah, that'll okay. So they'll have a kind of a similar timeline to Creighton. They'll come back a day earlier, but they would they probably assume they don't need rink math for that one anyways. Um,
Yeah.
you
I
would
mean,
hope not.
yeah, if you're Nebraska, yeah, you sure hope that's not
Yeah,
gonna be the yeah, I mean it kind
yeah,
of comes back to what I was saying that for Nebraska this non-con season has just been take care of business and don't lose the games you're supposed to win, which for Nebraska has been no slam dunk over the past 4 or 5 years.
right.
But with that in mind, I think this is a good time. Nebraska and Creighton both have a little bit of time off. The schedule for both gets significantly harder to this point, getting into conference play. So I think now would be
Yeah.
a good time just to examine, where are these programs right now? Where, how should Creighton be feeling about these first 2 months, and what do the Blue Jays want to do? Where do they want to
Mm.
go from here?
Yeah, I think they would probably tell you that teams have figured out the best course of action to slow them down. It's no secret that they want to get out and run. They want the offense to be really free flowing. They want to make the extra pass because most nights it's there, and they want to make teams pay for it. And maybe a couple of times a game when that gets shut down, they're going to feed it into their 7'1" center, right? Like skeleton wise, that's kind of the scouting report of this team. Um, I think I don't know if Colorado State did, but perhaps in some ways, UNLV certainly did, and then Villanova did as well. Kind of followed it, the recipe to beat this team. Um, Now defense, I guess slow down on offense because I still think they're a problem defensively. Creighton is. I still think they're like a top 20 defense in the country in every database. But offensively, teams have started to be pretty handsy with them. If that means send them to the line, that's okay. They've taken quite a few free throws over the past week, and teams are okay with that because we'd rather you score two than make three after three after three. And so teams have started to pick them up right at the 3-point line. They've started to hedge screens more, even if that means that Ryan Kalkbrenner has a free run to the rim. Because again, we'd rather you go two after two after two than three after three after three. So that's kind of what teams have done to them. It's worked. UNLV did it. Bama was always just going to be a track meet. So that game is what it was stylistically. And then we saw Villanova do that kind of the same way defensively. I still think Creighton played well enough defensively where they should have won that game. But again, give Nova credit, man. So that's kind of where they stand. They're gonna have to figure out maybe a different way to flow the offense. I don't know if they'll change course of action. Like this team is full of shooters. They're just not going to not shoot, right? But they're going to have to do something to get those open looks that they were once getting because it's not going to get any easier. You only see DePaul twice a year. So they'll have quite the task at hand to change some things around. But I don't know. I still think I still think without a question they make it to the second weekend in March. Like right now, mid-season report, I guess type of thing. I still think they easily make it to the second weekend in March. Their style does give teams problems, but if another team is willing to play defense, at least again where this team is on December 22nd, if another team is willing to get down and play defense like Nova does. Like UNLV did, the Jays could certainly have problems, especially if they are not hitting their shots that night.
Oh, no. For Nebraska, I think, if you're Fred Hoiberg and the Huskers, this was about as good of a start to the season as you could have asked for. Nebraska's 10-2. They have taken care of business in the games they were supposed to win, and surprised some people by winning games against Michigan State and Kansas State.
Yeah.
And I think they're starting to kind of find their identity of a team that can, I think when they like to kind of bully you down low, they like to go through Rink Mast and Jawan Gary win on the glass, but this is also a team that can shoot it when it gets hot. Obviously, everyone knows Keisei Tominaga, Bryce Williams, the guy who can really shoot the ball. We saw CJ Wilcher heat up last week, and so they've got a lot of guys who it's kind of any given night they can make some shots. Jamarcus Lawrence seems to slowly be getting more comfortable. Running the offense. He was a 2-guard last year. They've asked a lot of him, to slide over, play, be their starting point guard this season. So Nebraska, it's it's the next phase now. I know this is a team that entered the season hoping and expecting to make the NCAA tournament. Most projections have them there right now, which it's December 22nd, so take it with a grain of salt. But it shows that what they did in these first 2 months has been enough. And obviously, it gets a lot harder. They're not going to play, the Riders and the Stony Brooks of the world in January and February. But this, in a season that has been, I think, for the Big Ten a bit disappointing. I think that's created just a wide open conference, and obviously, there will be questions going in of like, oh, how many bids is this league going to get? They've lost a lot of games, but it also means just who's gonna someone's got to win these games when they're all playing against each other, and it can't be Purdue every night. There only one team plays the Boilermakers every night, and I think Nebraska is in a spot where it's at least it's capable of hanging with a lot of teams, a lot of pretty solid teams. We saw what happens when things go completely sideways against Creighton and against Minnesota. But for the most part, I think this is a team that should be really happy with the way it played over the first 2 months of the season.
I think so. I mean, you're two, realistically, they should be 11-1 right now. The only loss being to Creighton.
Yeah.
Like, they're a second half collapse against Minnesota away from being 11-1 heading into the holidays, which is just nuts. Could you, lighter schedule as you mentioned, but like, could you have pictured a more perfect start?
Yeah, it's hard to.
Yeah. So no, that I think they could. The Big Ten's down this year basketball wise. Maybe it's more thorough than it has been. Like Northwestern beat Purdue. We've already seen that. So maybe top to bottom, it's more thorough than it has been. But I don't know if outside of Purdue, you can say like this team is a nightmare to play.
Yeah.
Ohio State, maybe.
Yeah. Illinois, I think right now
Illinois
is the second best team, but yeah, I mean,
but
from there you got Wisconsin and Michigan State, which we've already seen
yeah.
the talented but have some problems. Those are certainly not far from flawless teams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it just feels like they could find themselves at this rate. They could find themselves in the upper echelon of the Big Ten come March, but there's a long ways to go until then.
Yeah,
of course.
Yeah.
So who knows? It'll be a doozy and a dandy.
Yeah. Well, on that note, I like the way that ended, a doozy and a dandy. On that note, yeah, thank you all for listening. This is I know Creighton and Nebraska each have one more game left in 2023, but I would imagine this was our last episode of 2023. So, John, have a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and
you do the same
to all the listeners. Thank you again, and this has been the Half Court Press Podcast.
Happy early Thanksgiving to